Okay, everyone, we are back. Low latency. Oh, I forgot to put on. Oh no, I can't do closed captions. Dagnabbit. Okay, sorry about that. I'm learning how to do all of these things. Okay, so I think I'm live now, and everybody is in the chat. Yay! I see your chats. Okay, let me go ahead and make this smaller so I can move the chat over to the right side for everything. Yes, round two. We are ready for round two. Okay, I'm already sharing a screen here. I did not do anything while you guys were gone. Well, or while I was gone, rather. So let's go back to this page here. But more or less, I ate, had a little after party with some FFA people, and I took a nap. So I got 20 minutes of sleep. All right. And I have tea. And I also have some, it's like trail mix. So it's like chocolate and cashews and almonds, those kinds of things. So we have rations basically for the journey ahead. If you are here for the Lord Byron, Mary Shelley Poetry Slam, I'm sorry you were in the wrong room. This is going to be Writing with AI. I'm author Elizabeth Ann West, and this is Future Fiction Academy. We are doing a Write A Thon this weekend. So to recap a little bit of what we've done, there is a link in the description for you all that will be the link to this Notion page. I will also go ahead and share it in the chat with you guys live here. I don't know why it didn't have it in the chat. Oh, wow. It is, my jump cut is very, very full. So there is the link to the Write A Thon kind of like hub page. Going over this, we managed to do, actually, let me go ahead and make some changes to this. So we can put our sessions information. Maybe we'll put our stats. Where do we want to put our stats? I guess we'll put our stats right here above prompts. So we'll go stats. That's cool. Session 1. We did a lot of prep talk. Then we managed to do, we ran chapter 1, both most accurate, and that was 2,549 words. And best prose was, where did I write that one down? I did not. Or maybe I did and I can't read my writing. I can't read my writing. That's okay. It is in the alpha, which is right here with Sudowrite. So best prose was 2,034. Okay, so 2,034 words. And ran chapter 2, which is 1,830, 1,830. Best prose. And then for most accurate, oopsies. And I will put it to the chat real fast because I asked the people in the after party what they wanted me to do next. I could jump right into chapter 3, but my proposal is let me go ahead and edit chapter 1 so that way in this master document I can get for you guys what beats I ran for chapter 1, what chapter 1 most accurate was, chapter 1 best prose was, and then you could see what the final chapter 1 was. Because if I share chapter 1 with you, I mean, you could publish chapter 1, but it's only one chapter. And that way you could really see like a really good representation of what happens from, writing with AI, how much you have to bring into it, how much it's not just, one click and you're done unless you want stuff that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Oh, no, I just closed that. I did not mean to do that. Okay. Let me go to TeamSpace. No, that's going to be even worse. Go back. Go back. I need a new tab here. And then we'll go to TeamSpace Home. And then we'll go to the Write A Thon page, which this is all of my prompts. And then I'll move it back over here. I have one Google Chrome that's organized and one's not. So let me go check in the chat and see if the chat's still working. So go ahead and let me know what you guys want me to do next. What's the vote? Chapter 3, or are we editing chapter 1 so we can see what it's like to actually edit up a chapter and get that done? Just so that you guys really are able to take what we're learning this weekend and get started with it right away. You don't have to wait for, session 6 for the edits. All right, we have lots of votes for editing. These are all my FFA people. All right, so we're going to edit chapter 1. Fantastic. Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can do this. The ways that I usually do it is, if I'm going slow, I just edit it myself. And let me show you how I do that inside of Story Engine. So I'm in the alpha account because remember I have 2 projects running. I've got alpha and I've got beta down here at the end. I have them separated so I don't get them confused. The reason I'm doing that is because that allows me to I go ahead and I get the beats for chapter 1 before I run chapter 1. I open up my other project and I start generating the beats for chapter 2 so that then I go back to my project for chapter 1 and I run chapter 1 while I'm validating the beats for chapter 2. It allows me to go back and forth and to be working fast while the AI is generating, because it can take a couple of minutes for best pros or usually most accurate to run, because we're doing quite a bit. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you how I actually do this inside a Story Engine. The best way I have found is just to remind everyone of the beats that we went with for chapter 1. Let me copy those, and I'll go ahead and put that in here so that you guys can follow along on your side. So let me go ahead and put in here another page. And this is beats. This is chapter 1. Beats, pros, edits. That's what we got. So let me give you guys the beats that we ran because you know the outline. So that was the final beats that we kind of ended up running with. And then we'll do best pros. So I can get that for you. I don't have to cut out of that. I'll come down here where I copied it. So copy the best pros, copy most accurate. That's the second one. Come over here, best pros, go to my jump cut, best pros. And actually, here's what we're going to do. With Notion, no, I don't want to do that. I want to undo. Let me do this. Let me go with Notion, you can actually insert what's called 2 columns. It's one of the other tools. One of the reasons why I like Notion in order to work with stuff. So we'll go with 3 columns of blocks because this is going to be best pros is that one. And then this one will be most accurate. And then this one will be the final draft once we're done. Now, I don't actually edit inside of Notion because these are really teeny tiny skinny little columns, but it does allow you to kind of compare left to right the same elements, because remember both models were given the exact same beats. So this one started off with the morning chill, this one started with the autumnal morning. And what I like to do is in Sudowrite, I have best pros, I have most accurate, and let me move that away. I don't care. Okay. Little alert on StreamYard that I'm using. Let me create another chapter 1. And let me paste in the beats just so that it moves my pros box down to the bottom. That's the only reason why. And I'm also going to go ahead and clear my jump cut. Kind of scary a little bit, but that's okay. Clear all. And now I have them right next to each other. So I'm going to look at these and read this as I go. Draped in a somber veil. I'm going to keep it, but because I actually like both of those. So I'm going to go with that one and paste that in. And then I'm going to go with this one. I like this one. She flew through the... So here's how you can manually kit bash. By the way, when I was at the session this week for the Copyright Office for the U.S. Copyright Office, right now I'm kit bashing together AI and I'm making edits to it. So when I'm finished with it, this final project is a mixture of my words and AI words. So the autumn, I can't say that word, so it's probably going to end up getting cut. Golden leaves of the trees outside Netherfield Park whispering secrets to one another as they danced with the gusts of wind. was under this melancholic sky that Elizabeth Bennet, her cheeks flushed from exertion and her dark eyes filled with concern, approached the grand manor. The morning chill still clung to Elizabeth's traveling cloak as she hurried up the winding lane towards Netherfield Park. Anxious thoughts crowded her mind, each one darker than the last as her boots crunched on the gravel. When the opposing facade and the estate finally came into view, her pace quickened. Okay. Here we go. And then I'll put this in here. Miss Bennet, said the maid who answered the door, we've been expecting you. Please follow me to Miss Jane's room. She fairly through, so that's not going to work because I don't know who the she is because I have the maid. And we have a footman, so that won't work. So actually, I'm going to cut that entire line. That line won't work. So this goes to thank you. What's the other one? We're at the bedside. So we'll do a thank you. Okay. So I've already mixed in a little bit of part B and a little bit of part A, and I've cut a little bit of part B. Okay. So that one's at the doorway of the bedchamber as she entered. Pale. Okay. I like this. So I can do at the doorway of her bedchamber. And one of the reasons why this is, I'm liking a lot of this is because remember, I already analyzed my style and had it right in a way that I like based on my existing writing. Pause, but her breath caught in her throat. So I like that bit. There lay her sister. We don't need that seemed to pierce Elizabeth's very soul. That's a little bit too purple prosy. Thank you very much. So there lay her sister, pale as the morning light filtering through the curtains. All right, so we're at 195. 195 words. So we don't like the motionless. I think I liked most accurate's better thing. As Elizabeth flew. Rasping cough. Flew to her sister's side. Dearest Jane, Elizabeth whispered, her head heavy. You're my sister. Okay, so I like this dialogue, but I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Dearest Jane, Elizabeth whispered, her heart heavy with worry as she pulled a chair closer to her bed. Took her sister's clammy hand in hers. Lizzie, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry to have caused you such trouble. Trouble? Let's not have her say Jane again, because that's silly. You are my sister. My only concern is for your well-being. Your cheeks are flushed. We'll have her be a little bit delusional. No. I merely walked here. I'm making a change. So it's a little bit sassier. Merely walked here. No kindness. It's a small price. We're going to do some. So this is one thing that the AI does that I don't like. It is that your dialogue is often like very ping-pongy, very tennis match, very like, dearest sister, you're here. Dearest sister, I missed you. Dearest sister, where are you? Dearest sister, please go here. Real people don't talk that way. Real people talk in, spurts, things that don't make any sense to someone until you're following the conversation. This is a writing skill that takes time to learn. And I'm not saying that I haven't perfected. I just find I enjoy stories more if the dialogue isn't quite on the nose. Because that's when you take words out, when you modify them. So the AI is really good at giving you something that you can start off with. So, for example, I know in the original story that Mrs. Bennet isn't going to help Elizabeth go to Netherfield Park. She wants Jane to stay there. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to fix it to where these girls are talking to one another, and I'm modeling after my own me and one of my own sisters, When my sister Christina and I get together, we have a tendency to speak in like one and two word sentences that make complete sense to us, but to other people watching the conversation, they're like, what just happened? I don't understand. So, and Jane's sick, so she's not going to be thinking too great either. So she thought she was sick because she's not able to think. She just sees her sister not looking good. And Lizzie's like, no, I merely walked here. And then Jane asks Mama, and Elizabeth will say, indeed. And that's all they'll say. Elizabeth confessed, an affectionate smile playing on her lips. But I like that one. And I think when my readers read this, they're going to know, because they know what Mrs. Bennet is like. That's one of the reasons. That's something about my genre. You'll have these little idiosyncrasies for your own genre that matter, and things of that nature. But let me know in the chat what you guys think. When you guys get dialogue from the AI, do you find that you often have to change the AI's dialogue, and how do you do that? Different techniques that you use. But it was a small price to pay to see you. I don't like that line. Your kindness knows is bound. I'll be well soon. Okay, I like this, but what I'm going to do, you should not have bothered. Jane is going to be so self-deprecating. I will be well soon. Jane insisted, her optimism shining through like a beacon in the dimly lit room. No, I'm going to edit that. So I'm going to just put a note for me to edit this. There's a reason I'm putting a note there. Because once I finish kind of kit bashing this together, then I'm going to take it into Sudowrite proper, and I can use the laser tools to actually help me kind of flesh this out even more, change it and everything. Pray do not exert yourself on my account. Rest and regain your strength. Perfect. Okay, we're good there. Then this jumped. I am here. This is like way too purple prosy. We're not doing that one. Over here, very well. There we go. So I have to kind of figure out what I'm doing here, scene-wise. This is one difficult, because this particular scene wrote kind of almost cinematographically, movie-like, where there's like, I imagine the scene like happening and they're talking, and then it fades to black, and then it's later on, and I've got to figure out how I want to generate the passing of time. So what I'm going to do is put this in here very well. And I'm just going to put a note to myself in brackets. Have something else happen here for the passing of time. There we go. And now, and actually I already have an idea when I'm doing that, so I'm making the note to myself. So this would be maid asking if she has what she needs, would like to freshen up. Questions about Mr. Jones, the apothecary. That Mr. Bennet Bingley would have already called for him that morning, so he'd already come and gone. Okay. So now this is later, and the dim light of the candles casts a warm glow in the chamber. So I'm going to bring this into it and add to it a sign that her sister's condition improved. But it was difficult for her to match Jane's usual optimism. So I'm writing that part, coming over here. Is there anything I can do for you? Would you like for me to read to you? Okay, I like that part's there. Let me see what I've got over here. Sometime like, all right. I like this. Well-worn volume. Was it in a bag? I guess so. Settling back into her chair. Coughing plate. Oh, I hate that line. That's not good. And I don't know how we're bringing in Mr. Darcy already. That's not going to work there, that either. That sounds lovely. And then there. So I need Jane to feel a little bit better before we're going to talk more about Mr. Darcy. So we'll figure out how to fix that in just a second. Okay. Jane's eyelids fluttered open. So that works because she's looking for some sign and then her sister wakes up. A little better, I believe. The presence is a balm as always, dearest Lizzie. Okay. We need here, I need a passage of previous mention of tincture from Mr. Jones in the teacup. Elizabeth gets Jane to drink and sit up. It will help clear her chest. You kind of have, it's funny to write Regency fiction. You kind of have to go with some home remedies and decide who knows what knowledge and things like that. If it will lighten my spirits, I will change that dialogue. Fix this dialogue. I don't like it. Dialogue. And I'm not usually this slow either. It's just that I'm on camera trying to do this. So I'm trying to explain my thoughts as I'm doing them. It's kind of interesting. Hit a smile, well-worn volume, and then that. Okay. And then describe how Jane perks up. And now they can converse about Mr. Darcy. For those of you who already know how Sudowrite 101 works, like the laser tools, you're probably already figuring out why I'm putting different things in brackets, because my friend Expand and Rewrite and Guided Writer are about to become a part of this process. So we have this information here. The Mr. Darcy's curls. I hated this part. This was all a rejection for me when I wrote this, and Caroline was like, "I want to marry you, and you'll never let me go," and everything like that. So what he thinks, Mr. Darcy. I like this. Very well. Okay. They wouldn't drink water. It's tea. I should not have burdened you with such thoughts. Think nothing of it. Indeed. Nope. We'll just do this. I like this part from most accurate better. And we'll write a better transition for this because that really didn't work very well. Mention of Caroline Bingley. As Jane finally succumbed to slumber. And I will fix it so that she's going. Let me see if I can reject. I think I reject completely. This is where I wish Sudowrite had a couple of like editing tools here. Like it would really help me personally if I could have my my markup stuff, because I could just do strike through and things like I don't want this part. And that is one way if I wanted to edit the chapter myself. But I like to see both chapters side by side. So that's one thing that I like. So 5 and 6 is completely rejected from me in Best Pro. So I'm only going to work with 5 and 6 out of most accurate. And I do like this, that the editing marks are in here kind of, that it tells me 5 and 6 so I can match those to the beats. Let me check my chats here. Okay, editing. What were you going to say about the original copyright in this manual method? Oh, sure. I'll explain that in just a second. Need to edit AI dialogue. After I verify beats, I tend to write scene dialogue first. Separate from the narrative. I'm reading a comment, by the way. Add narrative to mesh. Yeah. So Tim is saying always need to edit the AI dialogue. So similar thing. But he likes to actually write the dialogue. I've seen that, dialogue drafts. I don't ever do that, but I do know that that is a valid method for working with AI too. Back to copyright. Okay, so you guys have already seen that I have done a couple of sections here. I have 1,000 words. Some of the words I typed myself. Majority of the words in here so far I've copied and pasted from either chapter 1 or chapter 2. However, I also made notes for my, or not chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter A, chapter B, best prose, most accurate. But the AI didn't write this sequence together. It wrote pieces of it at different times. It didn't write it all in one time. Me, the human, has edited. I've made revisions to, so if you were to think of this as like the main one, the main piece of the AI wrote, I've made revisions by inserting other AI words and also some of my own words. And also I've changed the arrangement and the order. So I have already, this work here is already substantially changed from this work and the other work. It is something that's different, and it's something that the AI could not do. The AI could not have really done this very well without me in this particular method that I did it in, the result that I did it in. I also have put notes to myself here that once we get kind of the gist of it, I'm going to take it into Sudowrite, and I'm going to start writing on these and using more AI tools to even get more detailed information. And I'm playing creative director. So I think that that's what helps with the editing aspect of it. When you put on that creative director hat and you are comfortable, it's not always easy to go, nope, nope, don't want those words, cut those words. And it can be tough because you guys have seen my dragon hoarding tendencies with words where I'm like, I've got to keep the words. But in this case, like I already have 1,000 words kind of put in decent methodology here, or decent order here. We're about halfway through, and I'm going to get to that 2,000 word mark that I want to on the chapter. And that's all I'm going for. And that goes back to what I said at the very beginning, where we're working. It's helpful when you're working with AI to have a clear definition of what your project, what you're trying to do, and then define what you want to do. So I've already defined that I have to do at least 2,000 words for each one. If Act 1 comes in at 7,000 words or more, I've won the game. I've accomplished my goal. But so it's helpful sometimes to write this down so that when you get frustrated, you're like, oh, wait, no, I'm good. Because even though on Sudowrite I had to use 10,000 words to get this 4,000 words, it's okay because I still ended up with 4,000 words that are ready to publish. And that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to have the words to publish, not necessarily be precious about how you use the AI resources. Okay, so we're down here, the mentioning of the fit. And I liked this bit, the chapter 5 and 6. Pray, sir. Oh, we'll fix that. That's not going to work. But I did like most of this writing here. I think I have to reject this one too. But I'm not going to delete it because this is a good outtake. So I'm not going to use it, but I may end up using the language or the dialogue later because I like it. So I'm just going to remember. I'm just going to actually make a note in my handy dandy notebook because that's one of the tools that we have at our disposal. I'm going to put chapter 1, best prose, and it's stride 7, 8. And I'm going to make a note to myself, good dialogue about Darcy, not Mrs. Bingley. Miss Bingley. I may use that in chapter 3 or 4. That's one of the best things about doing this creative directing. You can kind of do that. I also usually have to make a scraps folder for myself, and I'll put that in scraps so that I know that I want to use it later. But for right now, the note in my my journal is fine for right now for what we're doing. So I like 3, 4. She's thinking to herself, why does he? Is it possible that he's genuinely indifferent towards them or merely playing a game of his own devising? Or perhaps he's simply blind to our machinations. Okay. So I like this. So I'm going to grab all of 5, 6 actually, because I think I'm comfortable with these beats. They're close enough that I'm ready to just take that part into Sudowrite. Late into night, sat by her. Her mind refused to abandon the enigma. Your attentions are unwelcome, Miss Bingley. I've made my feelings clear on this matter. Okay, so I like this. Glancing back. Okay, I like this very much. That's perfect. This is the vibe that I wanted. And that's because it literally followed my beats like I wanted. And meanwhile, this thing was like, I don't even know how it resolved that. I must insist that we consider this. Okay, actually, I like that dialogue better for 9 and 10 because it's not as harsh as this one is. So let me go ahead and grab this information here, throw that in there, scroll up to find where I don't like the language here. Your attentions are unwelcome, Miss Bingley. I've made my feelings clear. That's really harsh. But until I actually get in there in one order and try playing with it, I'm going to grab this and go through the crack. Yeah, there was no proposal. So this is where like Best Prose gets confused thinking that this is, sometimes it gets confused about Pride and Prejudice and just thinks that that's what we were writing, that she's already proposed, and that's not happened at all. So let me find where we are. Jane, dearest Lizzie, I cannot always a vigilant observer late into the night. Right here. Unmistakable figure. Okay. That's a little bit more soap opera-y. So I'm going to put a little asterisk here to note myself. There's more. Keep reading. This is a whole section. This is just an editing note to myself. I'm going to bring in that little bit, and then I'm also going to bring in this. I do not have time. Before, I'm sure whatever business you can have can wait a few moments. I must insist that we continue this another time. All right. So I like this. And then this is definitely very soap opera-y. I like it. So I'm going to come to where my section is here. Add in there because that's from Best Prose, and then come down to where this section stops. Okay, so it's for the whole rest of it, so that's fine. So I'll just know to read through that. So now we have 2,779 words. This is not most accurate. This is the kit bash. So what I do is I always label it kit bash so that I know. And now I send this to Doc. How are we doing? Is this making sense to everyone what I'm doing? Any questions about how I am putting notes to myself? Okay. So there's a question in the chat about what do I find more efficient or giving the best result at this point of merging both chapters? Revise manually side by side like you just showed, or the kit bash with Playground? What's your experience? You know, it depends on your personal preference. In this particular case, I did try to kit bash earlier. I did that at the end of the last session, and my prompt wasn't working right because I didn't have the correct prompt fully. I didn't have the best one, the one that I've tweaked. However, the other problem is that Best Prose really went off the rails. 5.6 was completely, I couldn't use it. That's where it just decided that Elizabeth and Darcy were in the library and like he confessed and wanted to marry her and propose to her. That doesn't work for this particular story. The whole point is that we're going to get to that proposal and everything like that. So you can't really do that in chapter 1. Like, thanks, AI. So I think that later on in the story, when I have it a little bit more defined, I might find kit bashing better. At this particular juncture, because one of my samples of writing was so off the rails, I couldn't do a proper kit bash because AI doesn't know that it's off the rails. Does that make sense to the person who asked the question? So I will call this kit bash so I know. And then I'll move it up so that it's in the right order. And let me check the chat to make sure. Yeah. So basically you can use AI to kit bash to get started with something if you have a good sample, but I did not have a good sample. So I know I'm going slower here, but it is what it is. So now we have these 2,780 words, and now I'm just going to get started with it. I like this, but it's kind of too many ideas. I think I'm just going to say the golden leaves of the trees outside Netherfield Park rustled, whispered secrets to one another. Whispered secrets to one another as they danced with the gust of wind. It was under this melancholic sky that Elizabeth Bennet, her cheeks flushed from exertion and her eyes dark with concern. I'm going to take out her cheeks flushed with exertion because that's repetitive, because her sister's already going to say your cheeks are flushed. Her dark eyes filled with concern approached the grand manor. The morning chill still clung to Elizabeth's traveling cloak as she hurried up the winding lane towards Netherfield Park. Anxious thoughts crowded her mind, each one darker than the last as her boots crunched the gravel. Why couldn't Mr. Bingley have thought to write more than just 3 lines about her sister's welfare? And I think I would probably make that italics once I do my final edits. When the imposing facade of the estate finally came into view, her pace quickened. Miss Bennet, said the maid who answered the door, we have been expecting you. Please follow me to Miss Jane's room. Thank you, Elizabeth replied, her voice trembling slightly. I realized when I rewatched parts of the video from the first session, sometimes when I'm writing, I hear my voice in my head, and I thought I was talking to you guys. Turns out I wasn't. It was just silence. So apologies for that earlier. I thought I was reading most of it out loud as I was writing, but apparently I wasn't. I was just typing, but I heard it in my head. At the doorway of the guest bed chamber, so we want to say that, guest bed chamber, Elizabeth paused on the threshold, her breath catching in her throat. There lay her sister, pale as the morning light filtering through the curtains, but it's not that. I mean, she had to walk a couple of miles. Pale. I don't know how to fix that. Okay, we'll just use a rewrite tool because I want ideas. So I'm just going to click rewrite, and I'm going to do a custom one. I'm going to say rewrite to give me other metaphor ideas. Go. But you can't do command enter. You have to actually click the button. Pale as the moonlight reflecting off the frozen lake. No, I don't like either of those. That doesn't work. All right, so another way. There lay her sister, pale. We'll just click describe, and we just want cite. I don't want any of these other ones. Describe. There lay her sister, pale. I just need an idea. Pale, translucent. It's not quite snow, but I like the pallor tinged with gray. So we'll just go with that. Pale and power tinged with gray. We don't need anything about the curtains. I think that works. Her usually vibrant golden locks were dampened by feverish sweat, and every breath she took was punctuated by a rasping cough. Can we rewrite this to be active voice or to be active past tense? I don't know if this will work or not. And yeah, I am being a little T-Rexy. That's better. Okay, so I'm just going to reuse that. Her golden locks. Not legs. I just used lay. What is the word? Like, I think suction cup, but there's no suction cups in 1812. There's her golden locks plastered. Plastered was because they did use plastered. Her golden locks framed her face. but hung dampened by feverish sweat. There we go. And every breath she took, each breath she exhaled was followed. And each breath she exhaled was followed by a rasping cough. Perfect. She's sick, y'all. Elizabeth flew to her sister's side, grasping one of Jane's hands in her own. It felt icy to the touch, limp and unresponsive. She squeezed it gently, then rubbed the top with her other hand, willing warmth and strength to flow from her body into Jane's. Perfect. Dearest Jane, Elizabeth whispered, her heart heavy with worry as she pulled a chair close to the bed. She already took her clammy hand in. I'll take all that out. And it's not all Lizzie. It would be a question. So yes, now I'm doing like a deeper edit. I'm actually trying to make sure that this is going to be a final enough draft that I only have to run 1 or 2 passes through. Jane murmured, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry to have caused you such trouble. Trouble? You are my sister, Elizabeth replied, her voice firm but gentle. My only concern is for your well-being. Even through your pain. Are you unwell too? Lizzie shook her head. No, I merely walked here. Mama? Indeed, Elizabeth confessed, an affectionate smile playing on her lips. You should not have bothered. I will be well soon, I assure you. Jane insisted, her optimism shining through like a beacon in the dimly lit room. No, we didn't like that. You know what? We're just going to go with insisted. Jane began to stir as though she would rise from the bed. Pray do not exert yourself on my account. Rest and regain your strength. Settling back against the pillows. Her eyelids fluttered shut. I think we had fluttered earlier. I think it would just be she. She succumbed to the fatigue that she held at bay on her sister's arrival. I can't really get into her head about how long the fatigue had been bothering her. So instead I have to just, obviously Elizabeth observed her having fatigue that she fought off. Her thoughts raced with a mixture of fear, and she knew that it was grave, and she must do everything in her power to see her sister restored to health. Yet amidst her worries, an unexpected thought entered her, that of Mr. Darcy. Okay, so here's where I have this first part of have something else happen here. Passing of time, knock on the door for maid, questions about Mr. Jones, the apothecary. So I have this. It's 35 words, and I'm just going to click expand. And sorry, my sister's arriving home from work. Expand does is it reads up, it reads down, it knows what's in the thing, and it's just going to write something here. So already I have the knock at the door. So a knock at the door is what I would put. The maid stood. Mrs. Bennet, I brought some tea and biscuits for you both, she said, settling a tray down nearby table. Would you like any assistance freshening up? So we wouldn't have that sentence right there. So let's grab this. Control C. And I'll put that in here. Excuse me one moment. Talk to Caitlin. I'm teaching. There we go. So the knock at the door broke Elizabeth from her contemplation of the situation. The maid stood in the doorway. A maid stood in the doorway. So not the maid, it's a maid. A tray in her hands. Miss Bennet, I brought some tea and biscuits for you both, she said, setting the tray on the nearby table. And then enter so I can put more space here. And then as Mr. Jones visited, And the maid shrugged. I'm going to do this. Another wholly unexpected. Wholly did not expect. We'll fix it later on in edits. Did not expect. Forgive me for interrupting. Forgive me for what is it? Imposing. That's what it is, the word. For imposing. Mr. Darcy said, bowing his head and waiting for Elizabeth to nod. She granted him a pardon. Mr. Bingley summoned Mr. Jones this morning. A tincture of, I don't know, something. I think like willow, I think is what they use for colds. I'll have to double check that. We'll just leave it vague. And strict instructions for Miss Bennet. Every few hours. Glanced over to the tray of tea, where she now noticed a small brown bottle in between the cups. Thank you. You and Mr. I wouldn't say you. Has been very kind. Mr. Darcy in the eye. Elizabeth said nothing further. Mr. Darcy. The man nodded and took his leave. Never maintaining propriety by never quite crossing the threshold into the room. Elizabeth sighed with relief. And then the maid spoke, reminding her that she was in the room. A room has been prepared, miss, for your use. Would you like me to show you? Yes. But first, please help me wake my sister up. Wake my sister and sit her up while I prepare her tea. Elizabeth asked, and the maid obliged. Jane relieved that it was not her in the sick bed, as she hated. No, I'm trying to say something along the lines like Jane was really good in taking her medicine and Elizabeth was not. Thankful it was not her in the sick bed. Elizabeth and the maid received no fuss from Jane as she dutifully emptied the cup and smiled at their care. Replacing the washcloth, or retrieving. Yeah, I know. I do a lot of gerunds. Retrieving another washcloth from the basin. Elizabeth. Oh, let me see where I am in the story. Yeah, I was right. I thought where I was, because basically this isn't until after she comes back from her bedroom. In Holy Toledo, we were at 3,000 words. Yeah, this is going to be long. Oh, let me check the things. When you expand and insert, do you delete the thing that you expanded? I do. Which I don't know that I did. So I didn't delete it yet because I wasn't sure if I was done with it. So I am now. So I'll delete that out. That's why I always keep it in brackets, because it's easy to check. So we are now, like, I am confident for this first top part. It is 726 words. And I would say that is really good. Like, this would be final. Oh, well, this is final draft, everyone. And it starts off with the he. I know. This is a draft that I would run through Grammarly and run through AutoCrit, run through, checks and everything like that. And then I do blog my chapters so that my readers can weigh in on them. I don't know if I'll have time to do that on this book. Probably. I think I'll have time. But anyway, so this is 726 words. And you guys have been watching. How many of the words were AI and how many of them were me? I don't know. And that's the whole point of this exercise. Like, there's pieces that I wrote and typed that I wouldn't have been able to type without the AI's ideas and kind of like sparking different thoughts and everything. So I was really heavily involved at the very beginning of, outlining what the chapter, what the scope of the project was, what the outline was going to be. Then I had AI help me with the outlines and all the different pieces of making characters and beats and stuff. I beefed up the beats. I ran the beats to get a bunch of raw words. And now I'm in the process of trying to take these raw words and turn them into something that's resembling something that's final draft. And that's what we're doing. And we're right at 1 hour into the first session. And, this process may not be faster for people. People may be looking at this process and going, yeah, Elizabeth, you've spent 3 hours and you have 750 finished words. Give me a second. We'll get to the fourth one and it'll be faster. We'll get to all this and it'll just be faster and you'll see me just go and do. But it is, it's not mentally taxing. I don't really feel like it did very much. I feel like I just got to read. And that's why I like writing with AI personally. It allows me to spend smaller times at the computer, and it allows me to just, do a lot of validation and everything like that at one time. So retrieving another washcloth from the basin, Elizabeth. And if I want to be completely lazy, and lazy is not the right word. If I want more AI assistance, let me use that. I can bring down my creativity to the lowest. Number of cards is 250 words. I can just click here and I can go click write. And the write button will actually come up with something that could go right there because it reads up all the way 1,000 words. We're not going to think about Mr. Darcy again. So I just like this person. Okay. Satisfied. And she could tend to her own needs. This way, ma'am. Mr. Darcy suggested. So I apologize that other rooms in this wing are already taken. The maid explained as she led Mr. Darcy. Surely You mean Mr. Bingley? No, ma'am. Elizabeth. I know you're not supposed to say Elizabeth's jaw dropped in astonishment, but I mean, because the jaw doesn't do the dropping. It's like Elizabeth dropped her jaw in astonishment. So I guess Elizabeth dropped her jaw in astonishment. Not so much about at the maid's words that the elegant room set up for her personal use. Okay, and then I'm going to put elegant Regency guest room at Netherfield Park. You're probably going like, why, Elizabeth, are you doing that? And that's because I'm going to highlight that phrase and I'm going to click describe. So that way I can get some phrases that I want to use to describe the elegant Regency room. Okay. Because there's only so many ways that you can do that. Walls lined. Okay, I like this here. So we don't want all of these details. A 4-poster bed with thick red velvet comforter and fellow pillows. I don't think we need all of that. I think the bed is the big thing. So I want that. Put this here. And then in the center of the room, much larger than Jane's. I'm doing that to contrast that Caroline Bingley likely picked the room that Jane is in, and she wasn't very generous about it. This is the room that Mr. Darcy kind of like, whatever, he finagled the wait staff, the maid staff, the servants to like make this happen for Elizabeth. And my readers will pick up on this. So this is like when you're writing with AI, it affords you the opportunity to really think about characterization and kind of like think through like the little things that I want to kind of convey out there. In the center of a room, much larger than Jane's, 4-poster stood a 4-poster bed with a thick red velvet comforter and fellow pillows. Elizabeth scoffed at the sight, laughing at her own hubris. At home, she and Jane shared a bed half that size on a regular basis. Thick Persian rug covered the floor, contrasting with the Wayne. As Elizabeth took a moment to explore a part of Netherfield Park she had never seen before, the maid asked if anything was amiss. No, this is perfect. Could you have a note sent to Longbourn asking for a trunk of my asking for a trunk of she asked. The maid smiled. That was already done, ma'am, upon your arrival. Elizabeth nodded and dismissed the maid. Stepping fully into her room and closing the door. When she walked over to the vanity in the far corner, her appearance, she laughed at herself even more. I'm just going to put in parentheses here. Describe her appearance being in shambles. Her hair unkept. And she notices her hem holds a line. There's a very famous line that she has 6 inches. Her hem is 6 inches deep in mud. Holds a line 6 inches. No, her skirts. There we go. Posted a line of mud 6 inches from her hem. So I'm going to just put that in parentheses there. I'm going to highlight more than just that, or not parentheses, brackets, and then I'm going to click expand. And this is actually going to end this scene because I think the other stuff is another scene, believe it or not, because it's a whole nother part. Oh, dear. Okay. Well, she wasn't on horseback. We already did all that information. As she examined the room, Elizabeth noticed a vanity in the mirror in one corner. She walked over and gasped at her own reflection. Nearby, a pot of cream for her weary hands, some soft cloths for freshening up. There would be no bathroom. It wouldn't be called that. I don't think so. Okay. We'll use some of that, I guess. I'll just put that here. Dismissed the maid. As she examined the room, Elizabeth noticed a vanity with a mirror in one corner. She walked over to it and gasped at her own reflection. Her hair was unkept, her face flushed with exhaustion. And her skirts boasted a line of mud 6 inches up from the hem. Up from the hem. Laughing at her own hubris as she thought of how homely she must have looked to Mr. Darcy. But it was better than nothing. A pot of cream. Yeah, we're going to take out the horsebacks. A bar of soap for washing with soft cloths. And then finally, a delicate bottle of lavender water. Under these items, made for the wash closet. I think that's what they called it. I always double check these details. I think it would just actually have been the dressing room because that's where they would have put the tub. Retiring room. The cloak room. Yeah. So you know what? We'll just sidestep it entirely because that's another way you can do when you're writing historical. Armed with these items, Elizabeth made made the best use of them she could. Until her effects arrived from Longbourn. Okay, so let's see what we have here, because this is interesting. So I think that's the end of the scene. That is a good introductory scene in my opinion. And so that's 1,152 words. I'm okay with it. We can have that. And I'm going to say that that goes into the final one here. And we're going to go chapter 1, scene 1, and I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to go, that is, and that's fine. The formatting is fine. Oh, accommodations is misspelled. Click that, fix that. Okay, so that is that one so far. And then there's a whole nother part of this that comes next. And for the scene, so I'm going to move this here. And now we're good. And this is, I always put a note to myself. One pass, that's all I've read through it. And then the other thing that I do in Google Docs, because to control my writing, is chapter 1, and I turn that into a heading 1 so that it's right here on my left-hand side. So that way I can see the scene 1. And then I think that propriety is what the word is, not proprietary. Thankful it was not her in this. Yeah, I'll fix that later. So now I would do a dinkus because it's going to be later in the thing. And we're going to work on scene 2. Any questions? Let me go back to the chat because I'm sure you guys are. Oh, hello, hello. Yes, the prep work is the hard part. Yes, very much the hard part. Okay, how are we feeling? We are at 1 hour in. And yeah, now I'm up to 1,000 words that's finalized. But I enjoy this part. This is my favorite part. My favorite part is editing. And honestly, I'm hoping that it's showing like, would you be able to tell very easily what words were AI and what words were not AI with what we have here in our final bit here. I don't even know how to calculate that. That would be interesting. I mean, I know that there's AI checkers. They don't actually work. They're just guessing. But I mean, it would be interesting to find something that would show this piece compared to that piece, what percentage matched them. I'm sure there's a tool out there somewhere. And I did also get some more AI, even more AI from here, but I hope you guys all got to see how I would twist things and change things. And it wasn't just, you know, click a button and get it, but I love it. I had fun with it. This is fun. All right. So with that said, I'm going to keep going with this last part here. We'll go a little bit faster. The dim of the light. Not the candles, just of candles. The dim light of candles cast a warm glow in the chamber where Jane lay. So let me see. I think we already had a shiver down her spine. Let's see. Control find spine. Yeah, there's like 3 spines. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. So this is one thing that happens. It definitely, so I don't think we need a shiver down her spine now. She's already seen her sister. She's not shocked. So let's just, I don't know how to say rewrite this. It doesn't rewrite very well for that. So we'll just go with this. We already have plenty of words. We'll be fine. Elizabeth searched for any sign that her sister's condition improved, but it was difficult for her to match. Okay, so I'm going to change this line. Intelligent, even she was intelligent enough to know that one dose of Mr. Jones's was not a miracle cure. That's good. Jane's eyes fluttered open. Elizabeth's heart leapt at the sight. Perfect. Jane, how do you feel? A little better, I believe. Okay. For another cup of tea, Elizabeth said, standing up to serve her sister. No, not yet, Jane said, sitting up to cough. Elizabeth froze as her sister sounded terrible. But Jane held I know when I'm sick, because I get bronchitis a lot, I'm coughing and I'm like trying to reassure. Yeah, a reassuring hand. Sister that she was well. If I lay my lungs will never clear, she said with authority. Elizabeth pondered her sister's claim and shrugged. Where she spent her time with literature and political treatises, Jane was a scholar of herbs and medicines. More than once, Mr. Jones could not be called. It was Jane who helped a tenant family back at Longbourn. Yeah, so now I'm making Jane basically like a little bit of a healer. That works. Good characterization. Oh, I should note that. So in my story engine, my main story engine here, I'll just remember it because I don't think it comes into play for any other chapter, actually, now that I think about it. So we'll close out of that and we'll just stick with what we're going with here. But I will just make a note in my journal that Jane is a healer. I always make her, I make her a healer in enough little books that it's easy for me to remember that characterization. My Jane spends a lot of time in the garden. So, oh my goodness, we still have a long way. No, I'm in the kit bash. Thank goodness. But I think I still have a long way to go. So we're getting close here. So we take that out. Encouraged by this small improvement. Elizabeth, no, she's not there. Elizabeth made a new suggestion. She rummaged in the bag she had brought with her. And finally produced a tome. Take that out. Again, fixing the dialogue, a comedy perhaps. What say you to the taming of the shrew? Elizabeth, Jane's brows creased slightly, but she nodded. Yeah. Okay, now I like that. I think I want to rewrite that to be a little bit simpler. Less formal. So I'm going to rewrite that to be less formal and see what options I get. Because I want it to still sound Regency. Okay, I like the far-fetched. I liked Improbable Tale. If it will... Okay, now I so. Give you occupation. I will endure even that improbable tale. Okay, so there we go. That's good enough. That feels more Jane to me. Elizabeth hit a smile already, so we already have that. Hit a smile. My sister had never quite understood, or any play for that matter. Read aloud in a littling tone, but after only a few lines, Jane interrupted with a pale fit of coughing that left her pale and breathless. Okay, so now I need to, this is going to be interesting. So here we go. I'm going to now go describe how Jane perks up. So she's pale and coughs. Okay. Elizabeth stops reading and fetches the tea, which Jane does not reject. But as her coughing calms and she sips, Jane asks Elizabeth questions about her arrival. About her arrival and care. Okay, so I like that, and I'm going to use that to click our old friend. Now, here's another trick with expand. If I highlight this little bit here, I have 30 words. If I grab this sentence here is 33. So if I grab 33, 30, and we have right here, the next line, we're at 91. This is like the expand sandwich. So this will tell the AI, start with this information, basically transition into this, and then finish off with that. So let me click expand. And we'll see how that goes. So you'll see Elizabeth settled back into her chair and began to read aloud in a littling tone. Shall I fetch you some tea? Nodded. We are not at Pemberley. So this is one of the problems that I have when I write Jane Austen fan fiction. It thinks we're at Pemberley. We're not. And this is one issue that expand doesn't read fully. You know what? This is fine. I'll just use this one. Okay, so we'll just go with this. That's fine for right now. It's enough words to get me going. Jane said, concerned, shall I fetch your tea? Her sister nodded. Okay. Set the book down. The medicated tea, which Jane did not reject as she had before. As her coughing calmed and she sipped from the cup. Okay, so you know what? We'll use Write for this because this is actually what I need to do. I was using the wrong tool. I needed to read up to understand what happened. So if I use Write is the best tool for this because Write's going to read up. There's 1,500 words, but the information with Mr. Darcy is within about 1,000. So we're right at the edge of where we need to be. And I think it can be okay. It'll be okay. So it'll get close there. So Jane asked cares here. So in my Write, I can actually control things with Write settings. And we'll go a little bit more creative. Creative doesn't mean creative more language. It just means creative from the prompt so that it can introduce new ideas here. I actually only want about 150 words because this is a small transition. Have you been welcomed here? At first, yesterday, I did not feel so. And when I became unwell, Miss Bingley, carriage. Okay, so, well, actually, I didn't. Sometimes this happens for me. When I'm trying to prompt the AI, it prompts what I need. It's like this weird. this weird thing, this weird phenomenon I have. Like, I can write better because the AI is right there as a safety net underneath me. Sometimes I don't even need it. I'm like, I'm going to use it, but then I'm like, nah, it's just faster if I just do it myself. Or just it finally comes to me when I'm like, I'm going to use the AI. And my brain's like, no, you're not. We're going to do it. Jane asked Elizabeth questions about her arrival and care. Have you been welcomed here? At first, yesterday, I did not feel so. And when I became unwell, Miss Bingley was going to call me a carriage, Jane said. Tart. She practically wished you dead. Jane smirked at her sister's bombastic response, designed to provoke a reaction. No, Lizzie, not nearly. I was not nearly so unwell then as I am now. Elizabeth shook her head, refusing to agree with her sister, who looked practically on death's door, in her opinion. But then Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy arrived home. And the next thing I knew, I was feeling quite faint. And I woke up this morning to see Mr. Jones. Elizabeth nodded. Mr. Bingley sent us a note. And I came directly here. Then Elizabeth recounted to Jane how the walk was unremarkable. And when she came to the part of explaining her room, Elizabeth paused. Okay, unremarkable. Jane, she began, her curiosity piquing her sister's, she began. Curiosity. So Jane finished her tea and began to show signs of sleepiness once more. Since I have arrived, I have observed Mr. Darcy more closely. I cannot help but wonder what he thinks of our presence here. Mr. Darcy, Jane asked, her weakened voice betraying her surprise, you are still troubled by his past surely you are not still troubled by his past insult. Took the teacup. Took the empty teacup from her sister. Did I already say that she finished her tea? Yeah. It settled back down into the covers. Troubled may be too strong a word, Elizabeth admitted, her dark eyes flashing with a hint of defiance. However, it is difficult to forget an affront such as his. Her gaze cannot be all bad. Niggling thought troubled her not troubled. We already have trouble. We have trouble. A niggling thought burdened her conscience. A niggling thought made her consider if his behavior that afternoon in securing her room and effects was in some way an apology. But she quickly shook off such a, what is the word, reprieve. And did not wish to explain everything to her sister. It sounded unseemly to announce that Mr. Darcy arranged for her to have a nice room for her to enjoy the nicest accommodations at Netherfield. And her sister was not one for jealousy. All right, then do it for me, Jane implored, her weakened state only amplifying her earnest request. Jane yawned, but defiantly kept eye contact with her sister. Very well, Elizabeth yielded, a playful smile. I dare say it matters little what I think of Mr. Darcy. I don't think this has happened yet. Right? No, we haven't even gotten there yet. My goodness. Okay, so that's not going to work. So I can just fix that line. Mr. Darcy, troubled, maybe too strong a word. Oh gosh, we're at 6:30. Okay, editing's a lot slower than I thought. We're definitely going to just work on generating. I'm going to have to do the editing on my own after this session because I want to get more generations done. Very well, Elizabeth yielded, a playful smile tugging at the corners of her lips. But I dare say it matters little what I think of Mr. Darcy. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. That's a good line. Nope. We can take that paragraph completely out. As Jane finally succumbed to slumber, I need this better. All right, so we're good here. We almost have basically like a third scene. So let's go ahead and get all of this into the document and see where we're at. Because I know I added a lot to it. You should not have bothered. We're not there. It was after there we go, the dim light of candles. So I'm going with this is finalized, and we are at tools, word count, 1976. A brilliant year. Okay, I'm looking at the chat here. Okay. All right, let me see the chat. So it rewrites portions of the chapter. Does AI know the entire plot at some level because the story engine is tied to this file? No, story engine does not talk to Sudowrite, the main part, not yet anyway. There's not enough context for that. And even if there was, it would be highly confused. And Ryan's right. It doesn't connect. The write feature reads up to 1,000 words up, and that's the only way that the AIs are connected. And so then, for example, if we're writing chapter 9, putting the synopsis for chapters 1 through 8 in system, along with any character setting prompts, and we ask GPT-4 to write chapter 9, would that work? Yeah, if you're in Playground. Do you have Playground, Laura, with GPT-4 in it? Because you have to request GPT-4. It's not automatic. Okay, so we are at 6:30, and I almost feel like this session's a failure because it's an editing session. Editing is very boring. Okay, yeah, then you're good. I see in your chat that you do have that. Apparently, defiantly, it did not like. Very well, but I dare say it matters little what I think of Mr. Darcy. So I think that this is good for chapter 1 so far, and now we'll do the next little bit where it's later at night. Feel terrible that it basically took me 2 hours to edit this mess. I'm not doing a very good job of convincing that, yes, you can write with AI. Everyone's going to look at this and go, it's slower than molasses in January. It is slow when you first go. If I wasn't having to explain everything, I would just do it. So now we have, and we're only, and this is, I'm only at Miss Bennett's. Okay, so we're here. I'm just curious. Yeah, we've edited only 2,000 words of this document, and this, because I've added to this document, I've been writing and adding things, and I've added more AI to it and everything. This is where it doesn't have really good sectioning necessarily. There's 3,727 words. There's still 1,700 words to validate / edit. So as Jane finally succumbed to slumber, Elizabeth stole away from her sister's room. Anxious to explore more of Netherfield Park. Her sister's condition was serious. But the best thing for Jane was undoubtedly rest. Meanwhile, so there would be no, I don't know how to say that. That's not what I want. So another trick I have, write a transition of Elizabeth going downstairs, find the library, and then she's distracted by the sound. Okay, so I want that, and I'm just going to grab this and click expand because it does. I don't need to use write, so it doesn't need to know everything. It just is a transition of her going downstairs. So there we go. That's what I wanted, was just that verbiage. Elizabeth descended the stairs, eager to explore. I think I already said explore. Violin, piano. Oh my good gracious. He's going to jump right to Mr. Darcy and write conclusion. Oh boy. Descended the stairs. Okay, so we'll just add that here. She descended the stairs, anxious to explore more of Netherfield Park. And somewhere there was a library bigger than the one at Longbourn, and Lizzie would not rest until she found it, until she perused its offerings. There we go. Not too bad. Soft rustling sound drew her attention to the drawing room. Perfect. And she hesitated a moment. Concealed behind the slightly ajar door, she watched as Caroline Bingley fluttered about Mr. Darcy, her constant attentions impossible to ignore. She analyzed each of the calculated tilt of her head and the haughty curve of her lips. Okay, so she's not going to say, sir. Pray, Elizabeth interjected. Might any of you direct me to the library? Oh, Miss Elizabeth, because Miss Bennet is Jane. His dark eyes meeting hers for a brief instant. In the meantime, thank you, Mr. Darcy. Caroline. Miss Bingley offered her assistance as well. And so back into the hall as the other two joined her. As they walked towards the library, Elizabeth could not help but think. No, she's not that stupid. That would not work. Characterizations was odd. She had spotted Mrs. Hurst in the corner of the drawing room, working on needlework. But the elder sister, or any mind. Cannot think this through. Let me see here. It's truly unmatched. Okay, thank you, Mr. Darcy. You know, I don't know. Let's just see what it comes up with. Let's see what it writes when it reads up and see what it finishes off. As I'm stuck again. In the meantime, Caroline redoubled her efforts. Okay, so we'll get to that, I guess, later. In the meantime, Caroline redoubled her efforts to ensnare Mr. Darcy, her voice growing more saccharine and a touch bolder. Here we are, Miss Bennet, Mr. Darcy announced, his voice steady and polite as he gestured to, I trust you'll find an ample diversion within. Indeed, sir. Oh, that's good. As she entered the library, allowed herself a moment of respite. Nope, I don't want that. This is all just like boitis, which I call what the AI wants to tie up the scene in a little bow. I don't know. Forgive me. Come on. Sorry, I have the rescue animal. Fun being live on YouTube. Okay, 20 minutes left. Come on, Elizabeth, you can do this. People mirrors at play. I don't know if they'd stay. They're not going to stay in the library with her. Mr. Bingley's voice carried from down the hall. And Miss Bingley seized the chance to remove Mr. Darcy from Elizabeth's presence. You needed to speak with my brother, I believe. Mr. Darcy? Sounds as though he has returned from his ride of the estate. She cooed, stating the obvious. Elizabeth was already ignoring the both of them. There we go. The library was grander than she had imagined, with tall shelves and a fireplace So we'll go with this. Than she had imagined. Tall shelves. Are you satisfied, Miss Elizabeth? Oh, yes, yes. I do not wish to intrude on your family party, she said, not looking at either of them. Okay, so I'm just going to say that they basically left. Away from the door, Elizabeth relished the sanctuary of books around her. There we go. She marched up and down the many shelves, trying to focus on the numerous titles present. Her thoughts, there we go, carried a whirlwind of curiosity and confusion. Oh, so it already picked up what I was going to do. That's funny. She marched up and down the many shelves, trying to focus. So I already have focus here. Inspecting. There we go. Inspecting the numerous tiles present, but her thoughts carried a whirlwind of curiosity and confusion. The vast collection of volumes seemed to mock her inability to focus on any one title, as her mind wandered incessantly between Mr. Darcy and Caroline's peculiar and Miss Bingley's peculiar interactions. Truly, she mused aloud, softly to herself. Why does Mr. Darcy remain so impervious to Miss Bingley's advances? Is it possible that he is genuinely indifferent towards them, or merely playing a game of his own devising? She paused before a shelf, a slender finger trailing over the spines of books she had no intention of reading. Her dark eyes narrowed as she considered the possibilities. Perhaps, she whispered, he's simply blind to her machinations. As constant as he is in his own pride and reserve. This is good. This is good internal musings. I like it. As these musings occupied her, Elizabeth eventually grew restless with the library's walls. With a sigh, no, not a fruitless search. She does find it. That without any for many years, there was not a new novel to be found. Settling for a selection of, I don't know, I'll come up with the name of a book later. Name book later. I'll look for one later. Probably something for something by Mrs. Ratcliffe. Okay, 6:45, 15 minutes. She had meant what she said, that it was not her intention to sit idly by with the Hursts, Miss Bingley, Mr. Bingley, and Mr. Darcy when her sister was still so unwell. Okay, so I'll do that low, and then, okay, so we're there. Returning to her sister's room, Elizabeth found her sister Jane sleeping soundly. Amused, she began speaking softly in a monologue of her own troubled. I don't want troubled. That's not the right word. Okay, but we could do troubled, and we can use the thesaurus tool. So troubled, just highlight this. Grieved looks well. Turbulent. There we go. Turbulent. We'll use that one. Turbulent thoughts. Jane, she began softly. We're not taking her hand in ours. We've done that many times. We're not doing that again. We entertain you with a tale of courtship and intrigue as observed within this very house. She proceeded to recount her observations from the drawing room and library, careful to imbue her narrative with enough levity and wit to make the tale sound as though it were a drama ready for the stage. Okay. Startling. Oh, I'm going to do a suddenly. I shouldn't. I don't know how else you can do it. Because I want suddenly when Elizabeth paused to take a breath, Jane suddenly spoke without opening her eyes. Let's see. Get rid of that. You must admit that Mr. Darcy likely has his reasons for remaining unaffected by Miss Bingley's advances. You're awake. Not entirely. But I liked listening to your voice. Please keep talking. Elizabeth shrugged and fulfilled her sister's wish, beginning a new one-sided conversation. Let's see here. Indeed, I cannot help but wonder at the nature of those reasons, Elizabeth replied, her gaze distant. I find myself curious, Jane, and I'm resolved to uncover the truth of Miss Bingley's attentions, if only for your sake and for the sake of our mutual amusement. Always the vigilant observer. Be careful, Jane said with a weak smile. Do not allow nope, I don't like this at all. Jane is too awake for this. Do not allow your curiosity to lead you into unseemly. Always the vigilant observer, but careful. Do not allow your curiosity to lead into unseemly meddling. Okay, we're going to take that out. She doesn't know. Have no fear. So put carefully. After all, it's not as though I harbor any tender sentiments for Mr. Darcy myself. As she spoke these words, however, Elizabeth could not shake the uneasy feeling that her own heart was not entirely impartial in this matter. The shadow of Mr. Darcy's initial insult still lingered, casting doubt upon her ability to judge him fairly. But as she sat by Jane's bedside, watching over her beloved sister and pondering the strange dance between the strange interactions between. Yeah, I've got to fix that. That's way too wordy. Oh. Rewrite. Make it shorter. So sometimes there is use for make it shorter, and we're almost done. Thank goodness. I only have 9 minutes left. I can't believe it took me 2 hours to fix these. But I mean, it is a lot of words. She watched her beloved sister. There we go. That works. All right. Now we have our next sign. Late into the night while the rest of the her mind refused to abandon. I don't think after both sisters had enjoyed tray for dinner, Elizabeth sat. There we go. Her eyes flitting between her sister's peaceful visage. Okay, perfect. Elizabeth yawned and realizing that the tincture of no, it wouldn't be gone yet, so yawned and stretched, decided it was time for her to retire. I don't want any of this. We just went all through that. Okay, so and I know this. I don't know. Voices in the hall made her pause before opening the door fully. No, we don't want that. That makes it look like they just had relations or something. Mr. Darcy, just the man I was hoping to see. Elizabeth cracked her door open to spy her two tour guides to the library conversing on the landing. Mr. Darcy paused. Stingly, I'm afraid I do not have time for idle chair. Do not be silly. I don't know that. Let me go back to here. Where was it? Your attentions are unwelcome. No. Actually, I kind of like how strong this is. Because then it's the mystery. I don't know. I don't know which one I like better. Idle chatter. Ugh, they're both good. All right. Well, we are 5 minutes left of the session. I haven't checked the things. Okay. Oh, cool. Process. Good to see the process. Watching you give new ways to use AI for rewriting. Yep. Yeah, editing is, this is my favorite part. This is my favorite part. More so than like picking a word. If you couldn't tell when I'm like, oh, I can't think of the word. That aggravates me to no end. I love having AI to help. So we'll go with, I got all the way up to here. And I'm actually going to keep working on the edits so that I can get 2 and 3. And I'll just mark like, hey, I got these edits done. Because I really want, the goal is 50,000 words. So we need to keep going. And I'll just say people, hey, this is what we did. So this is, or I may take a break. This stuff is all edited. We ended up with, oh, that can't be right. That can't be right. Okay, I accidentally pasted the whole chapter. Okay, I was like, wait, no. no. I just needed the next part, which is right here. Oh, where did I end up on here? Matters what I think of little Darcy. Okay, so I'm right here. Matters what it thinks of Mr. Darcy. So I just grab down to this way. All right, so I'm here. Okay, so I added that last little bit, and now our word count is 3,184 words. And for those of you who have been following along before, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. If you think that this, what you've seen me kind of paste into here, if this would be kind of considered final draft for you, that you would just do maybe one or two more passes through to check on it. Any thoughts? So we ended up with 3,000 so far. At the end of 2 sessions, we are at 2 sessions. I have 3,184 words done. Final. So what I may end up having to do is just doing the runs. Oh, that sounds terrible. Running the different chapters through Story Engine. Let me go ahead and check the chat and see what you guys think, since we only have 2 more minutes left. All right. Any other questions before I end? And we'll take a little bit of a break. And when I come back, I don't know if I'm actually going to continue on to this. I may just pause and yeah, I would take it into Pro Writing 8 or AutoCrit 100%, because I'm not able to check all of the crutch words. That's a good point, Harper. It's a good point in the chat there. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We don't usually edit in FFA Labs, but hopefully you guys saw some new tips and techniques for editing. Make sure when this goes live publicly, if you want to put in the comments what your favorite technique was that you saw. We did some expanding. We did some rewriting. I also used the write feature in Sudowrite 101. Or not, I call it Sudowrite 101 because it's the part of Sudowrite that gets taught in 101. It's the laser tools, the pew pew. So this was the kit bash, but I didn't actually kit bash them. I don't think that the AI could have done a really good kit bashing for this because of the sections. But one thing that I could have done, and I might do for future chapters, is if you don't like the whole thing, because I did all the sections at once, you can actually kit bash one section at a time. And it does usually do a better job at that because it's a smaller piece of information. So, and that's kind of like what I naturally worked in. If you guys saw, I kind of worked in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I worked on 5, 6, 7, 8, and now all I have left is the 10 and 11. So your beats can actually kind of serve as a backbone. If we go back to the beats here, we did, when I was editing, I was like ill, the beginning part, the bedside, observations. Then we went downstairs for the drawing room. I added a whole nother section in here that wasn't in the beats at all, about her going to her room and finding out that Mr. Darcy kind of set it all up. So we actually put a lot of information there in 4, to where now I'd probably take the finalized chapter 1 and get it summarized and then put that in my outline. And that's my new outline, not the beats, because I've even deviated from the beats. Let me put that as a note. Summarize chapter 1 so far. Replace in outline. Hopefully we can get faster. Otherwise, well, we'll see. We might be working into this next week. It's a lot of lives. That's okay. You guys are here. So sounds good. And I will see you guys at 9 o'clock Eastern. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.